Leonie, nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, well, I have been on back-to-back Zoom meetings all day, so but I'm really glad to be ending my day talking with you about something I feel quite passionate about. So tell me, because actually, sincerely, you and I have not spoken about this in advance of this chat
No,
today.
no.
But I'm intrigued because I did not know that you had an autoimmune condition until you reached out to me. So tell me about it.
Um, yeah, I haven't really spoken about it either. Certainly not publicly. But I have something called Hashimoto's disease, which is something you can have, and nothing really bad happens from it. Autoimmunity doesn't necessarily happen as a result of that. But my Hashimoto's disease has been burning away for 10 years without me knowing, and it's destroyed my thyroid gland. So when I actually went in, when I went into the doctors, because I felt pretty rough, um, they confirmed that I had Hashimoto's, and actually it progressed past the point of being able to do anything about it. So it was a really big shock. And then I read your article in Campaign where you also were speaking about your autoimmune condition, and so I really wanted to speak to you about it. I mean, I think it's of all the people who get this, an autoimmune condition, 80% are women. So I actually think there's probably quite a lot of us floating around,
Mm,
and you just don't know who is dealing with it in
yeah.
secret.
But I also wonder, a bit like you, how many people are dealing with it and dealing with the impact of having an autoimmune disease, but they don't know they've got one.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not to scare people, is it? But yeah, like I say, I've probably had this for 10 years.
Mm, mm,
So for a decade, I've been kind of passing off symptoms that don't seem to be particularly related, and lots of them would just disappear as a normal, in your tiring week, you're a bit.
mm, mm.
So yeah,
But
it
how does
for a
it
long time.
manifest itself? Like, how do you feel it? If you don't mind talking about it, you don't have to go
No,
into.
no, not at all. No. So I actually went because I thought my hair was really different. I was really cold, and it's bizarre what happens when something's creeping up on you over 10 years. I hadn't even noticed I'd started wearing a scarf at my desk at home. I just thought I need to put the heating on more. So it just kind of crept in like that. I was cold, and I was slightly out of breath. I didn't feel as fit. My hair felt really, really thin. And a lot of it, I thought, and I'm just getting older, or it's perimenopause stuff or
Mm,
something. But it actually got to the point where, and again, it didn't occur to me that something was really wrong. I felt quite tired in the afternoons. I'm really tired, and that's kind of a normal thing. That's human rhythm, circadian rhythm. But that had got much, much worse to the point where I was just napping, which is a really good thing to do, actually. But I was really having to do it, just
yeah.
completely going. And anyway, I finally went along, and they weren't necessarily a set of symptoms you'd put together. So I don't think I'd have guessed, or
Mm.
and they did the blood tests, and yeah, I had this thing which was just unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it.
And out of interest, did your GP or whoever sort of shared the news with you, did they have a lot of information about it, or did you have to kind of Dr. Google?
Yeah, the trouble is well, without getting into this because it would take hours, but my experience has been they get you to a certain point, they get you back up to a certain level with a synthetic thyroid hormone, which is what I have. But they don't know how to solve autoimmunity or make that better. So the conditions that are surrounding your symptom, which is my thyroid being busted, aren't tackled at all in our health system at the moment. So you're left to decide whether you're just going to take the synthetic hormone and get on with it, or you're going to actually try and get yourself out of this systemic mode that you've got yourself into, so that you can, maybe not develop another autoimmune condition, because you're more likely to get others if you've got one. So I'm trying to do all that stuff now, and so I'm taking the synthetic thyroid hormone, which is great, but that is the symptom. So I'm in the background always trying to change how my system's working.
I mean, this doesn't sound like it's an easy task.
No,
Changing systems.
no, it's not. It's not. It's really not easy. I mean, I do things now that I can't quite believe I do. I do all sorts of things to heal my gut. I mean, it's still now so part of my routine, I think, that it doesn't impact me too much. And, you know, that my friends and the people around me don't think it's that weird that I'm doing things like drinking a shot of vinegar to change my stomach acid, and all the
Yeah.
gluten there is gone. That just goes straight away.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is just the boundaries, you know, that I still didn't fully have. I think I still felt a little bit vulnerable about saying things like, I can't make that meeting, you know, I've got an exercise class booked, or whatever it was. And, you know, I think something like this, the good side of it has been it completely tips you over into um, having those boundaries. For me now are easy. Once you know you're ill, you
Yeah.
can look after yourself.
But how long into this are you? Like what's the time frame? How long have you been like your healthy eating, vinegar drinking self?
Well, actually, I was diagnosed about a year ago, and then I spent a good couple of months just kind of in denial and thinking, I'm sure they've got that wrong, and I bet there's something I can do to reverse it. So I didn't take the medication for 2 months. And then there was an acceptance period, and you kind of go through these stages. So I've been kind of fully on the reversing my anti-inflammatory system bus for about 6 months now.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I read your article and just thought, God, there's quite a lot of us coping with it and doing this stuff. And it's, you know, I never see other people drinking shots of vinegar and doing all that stuff.
Well,
How do you?
the reason why I was interested to know how like far along this journey you are, because it took me back to when I was sort of newly diagnosed with lupus, is what I've got, systemic lupus. And that, I mean, it took so long. Lupus is characteristically really hard to diagnose because it masks as loads of other things, because it's basically similarly, it's a collection of autoimmune diseases, but it's under the umbrella of lupus. And I'd just been poorly for a long time, and I was probably poorly, like I was in and out of hospital, and every time they would keep me in because all my markers were all over the place, and you know I'd clearly had a lot of inflammation and not enough oxygen, and my kidney and liver weren't functioning properly, and I had an inflammation around my heart, pericarditis, and it was really freaking bleak. And anyway, at the time that I was then diagnosed, I went into full on clean living. Like I was a proper party animal. My nickname was Leonie last at the party because you couldn't get rid of me. And I stopped drinking. And I know that this is bad to say, but darling, I'm just in there. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's what I did for her.
I love your makeup and I love you, and I'm just doing something, and I'll come down in a minute.
Makeup artist when I
Okay,
grow up.
Brill.
I haven't talked to me. Oh.
Anyway, I won't talk about that now. So basically I went into full on healthy living, and had, you know, I was so healthy. I was so healthy, but at the time my body had been so poorly. I'd stopped having periods because your body does this miraculous thing where it protects yourself from yourself. And it was like, you are not fit to have a baby right now. We won't give you that function. And then, and I went to go and see someone who said, you know, yeah, your ovaries are basically sleeping to protect you. And that's when Freddie, who just interrupted us just now, came along, because I didn't know I was pregnant because I hadn't been having periods for about 6 months. Anyway, and I was doing this really healthy living and treated my body like some kind of temple. And then cut to, you know, however many years later after that original diagnosis, which is, so it's probably 9 years later, I don't do any of those things. I do nothing. I've gone back to really unhealthy ways. And that's setting myself up for a fall.
Has it affected the way that you feel on a day-to-day basis? Because I think I've tapered off the health stuff and I don't feel that much worse. But how do you feel?
Do you know what? At the time when I was sort of like recovering from a sort of bad bout of lupus, and it flares up, and it often is associated with stress and you know, and your work-life balance and just your life zen.
Yeah.
And I needed a reset. I needed mentally and physically to press reset. But I also hated it passionately. I was so angry with my body for letting me down. And I hated this lupus label for changing me. And I didn't talk about it with anyone because I felt so embarrassed that I had this thing that had let me down. And it's funny because actually the reason why that campaign article came about was in an effort to try and normalize it for people like me who had found that there was, you know, a self-inflicted stigma attached to it. But funnily enough, like when I gave it lots of attention in the healthy evening, and it became too much of my personality.
You mean it takes over, doesn't it?
Took over, and that's not who I wanted to be, and that's why I was so angry with it. So I'm quite happy now, like it's bubbling away in the background. I'm conscious. Have you heard of the spoon theory?
No.
I really recommend it to everybody. It's like an autoimmune thing in the autoimmune community. But it's a good thing for everybody in their life. That basically, if you imagine that you wake up at the beginning of the day and you've got 5 spoons in your pocket, and for each bit of a kind of activity that exerts your energy, you have to give a spoon. So when I was properly poorly, to have a shower would have been giving away a spoon. Then if a friend wanted to come and visit me for a coffee, that energy would be giving away another spoon. And you basically, mindful of the fact that you've only got 5 spoons to use throughout your day, you use them wisely. Like now I don't think about that, like just give away my spoons willy-nilly. Like I've got a lot of energy to give, and that's how I like to live my life. But it is still important to remember we're not infallible. Like we do need to protect, whether you've got 50 spoons or 5, you need to be careful and mindful and protect your spoons. So if I am having a moment where I feel like, and I can tell for me, like I can feel when my heart is, the muscle around my heart is inflaming, or my lungs are inflaming, I can feel all of that. And I just think, spoons, bring it back.
Well, yeah, that's a really good one. It's a nice way. It's a good way to think about it almost on a daily basis, assessing how you feel and trying to manage it on that day, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, but I wake up and sometimes I've got 1 spoon, sometimes I've got 10, but the unpredictability of it is quite hard to manage, I find. So I guess alongside the spoons theory, it's about knowing what you've got on that day almost, and just being a bit aware of it, isn't it?
And I had a real wake-up call when, you know, because to be honest, like lupus comes in flares, and I haven't had a flare-up, not one where I've been bedridden or worse, taken to hospital. Like I haven't had one of them in years. And quite commonly, like having children helps that. And my lupus specialist, when I got pregnant with Freddie and all of my symptoms disappeared, he said, your body, because autoimmune, your body is attacking itself aggressively, but because you can't do that because you've got a baby, your immune system lifts so it doesn't attack the baby. And so my consultant joked to me, well, you're just going to have to keep going pregnant then.
Keep going, not do that forever.
Exactly. Nor do I want to, thank you very much. And yeah, 2 and done, thanks, that's me done. But I haven't been ill about it with lupus for so long. And then a couple of Christmases ago, I started to get some symptoms back, and I spoke to my lupus consultant about going back on some immune suppressants, but it's an immune suppressant. And he said to me, do you really want to go into winter with an immune suppressant? It's like, you know, at its worst, I was on a little chemo pill. It just suppresses your immune system. And I said, no, I do not want to do that. And he went, I think you just need to control it with your better controlling your lifestyle. And I was to be told, control your lifestyle or go on this horrible medication.
it focuses them on that stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, things become doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
how do you go? Oh no.
I'm going to ask you probably the same question. How do you control your, you're in a senior role, it's busy, you've got all this stuff going on a million miles an hour. Do you ever have to think about managing it, or can you manage it, or do you just put it to one side now? And
I mean, to be honest, I am not the best person, to talk about this, because if I was to give you advice, I would say be very clear about your own boundaries, be very strict with yourself, and put those boundaries in place for yourself. So I think the only thing that I do and really adhere to is I go to bed early. I'm no longer Leonie last at the party. I need to get sleep because it's restorative, and because my day job is so very intense, I'm not getting any respite in the day. So I need to do it at night. I need to sleep. But aside from that, I still drink arguably too much. I still don't eat all the healthy food I ought to eat. But if I was to give you advice, it would be like, yes, look after your body. It's a temple.
I can tell I'm at a stage that you've been through almost, because I'm doing all the healthy stuff. I'm living like a, juicing, all that stuff. And I can already tell I don't want this to be the rest of my life. It's really, really full on. So I think it will find its own equilibrium where you do the things that make a big difference to you, and you drop the rest. But I agree with you that sleep is absolutely fundamental now. If I don't have a pretty early night, I'm just absolutely unable to function properly the next day.
Yeah.
So it's not worth, for me, it's not worth trying to push that. It's a non-negotiable, isn't it?
And also I think meditation is so important.
Yeah.
Because
it's a really, really good one.
You can't nap. If you can't nap in the day, and at the moment my schedule doesn't allow that, but if I can, and I have been at times before, like, oh, I'm too busy, I can't possibly give myself 3 minutes. Yes, you can. Everyone can give themselves 3 minutes just to do some relaxation, some breathing, to empty your brain, to bring your heart rate down. This is so important because it regulates your system. And I think so often we're in kind of like, our bodies are in, or we're in a kind of fight or flight mode, working, firing off emails, speak in and out of meetings, and this, your rhythm is shot. Just so
you can actually get. I mean, I think that's what happens to me. You actually get permanently stuck in fight or flight. So it becomes more than just relax. You can't just relax. You have to actually undo that with breathing and meditation. You have to unravel that, don't you, to come out of that state that you've been in for so long. But that's a really good. I hadn't thought of meditation actually when you can't nap, because of course you can't nap. I can actually nap because I'm at home, but you can't nap. But that's a really good swap for
it's a good swap. And I would say as well, be honest with I mean, you work for yourself, so but if you work for a company, I would say be very crystal clear with your employers. And I know that when I was an MD when I first got diagnosed with lupus, and I remember just feeling so embarrassed and guilty and cross with myself for having to tell Derek, our CEO, about what I was going through. And I was so embarrassed about the hospital appointments, etc., etc. And then I realized that, you just take that. That was all. I was putting all of that story, projecting my imagined view of what he was, thinking of me. None of that was true. All your employees will want to do is fully support you and to get you back to good health, and put whatever measures they can in place to protect you. And even if it means protecting you from yourself, telling you to get offline.
It's really interesting that, and I haven't spoken about it before, because I think I've spent so long in an industry, in a career where I wouldn't say necessarily the badge of honor thing, but that pace is just normal, and also it's quite fun, and
it is.
I enjoyed it. I loved it. And I probably felt a bit unhealthy at times, but you can just brush it off, can't you? But I think it does feel a bit weird saying I need to go again to another appointment, or I'm not going to join that meeting because I've got this I'm going to do an hour of yoga, whatever it is.
Yeah,
But
I know. Yeah.
I've pushed past that point too, and it's okay. I do all that stuff now, and I don't think people bat an eyelid too much.
And I think
It's about what
actually,
you deliver, isn't it? It's about
yeah.
work that you deliver, and I've found finally that I can actually look after myself and have those boundaries and deliver as good or even better work actually.
Well, exactly. And the consequence of not doing those things, if you don't put those boundaries in place for yourself, then you will burn out, your body will fail you,
Yeah.
and you will have to take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks off work. So surely it is better to finish the day at a reasonable time, take a reasonable lunch break to have, your basic, it works for you and it works for the company.
I hope it's that point, because we're going to be working, lots of us going to be working for quite a long time, and it's you've got these the autoimmune thing is on the increase, which I didn't realize either. It's really rising. So not only is it 80% of women who of all the people who've got an autoimmune disease, 80% are women. That figure is going up year on year. So I think modern life, isn't going to slow down in times. We need to take it into our own hands, really. If you be around doing your career for as long as you would hope to do it, then it just doesn't make sense, does it, to not
And
do
also,
it.
when you say that about taking it into your own hands, I would say that for women, that we have to take our healthcare into our own hands, because the NHS, God bless it, it is just not set up. It's not fit for purpose for women. It doesn't serve women. They just don't have, I listened to a Women's Hour the other day, and it's about the amount of research papers, the amount of time that goes into researching women's diseases in comparison to those that impact men.
We haven't had the money, we haven't had the research, and I'm wondering actually if this autoimmune thing, how much money is going into that now to find out why it's so many women and why that figure is rising. I mean, it's an interesting one to think about that.
But we won't solve that now, though.
Won't solve that now. Just money going into it somehow.
Yeah. I think we're out of time, Sam, because we've gone done about 20 minutes, haven't we?
Well, it was lovely to speak to you, and I'm glad you did write that article or agree to have that article written, because it is what prompted me to speak about it, and it was it was refreshing, I think, to see someone being vulnerable about that stuff. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for reading it, and thank you for telling me about yours as well. And I think all we can do, women are so good at supporting one another and lifting each other up, and I think the more that we can be honest about what's going on in our personal lives as well as our professional lives, they're all interwoven, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. Let's just continue to support one another. It's nothing but a brilliant thing. Really nice to speak to you, Sam.
Really nice to speak to you.
Bye.